This morning, May 10th, 2026, new pictures from a Sentinel-2 satellite came out. They confirmed what many experts had quietly thought, but nobody had seen this big yet. More than 130 IRGC fast attack boats were seen inside the Strait of Hormuz. They were grouped together in two huge organized lines near Qeshm Island and the nearby coast areas. And that one picture, that single piece of satellite information, tells you everything you need to know about where this fight stands right now. Because here is the hard truth that the ceasefire news stories have been covering up. The United States spent 40 days carefully destroying Iran's regular military strength. The U.S. military says it sank over 90% of Iran's navy. More than 150 warships from 16 different types in the Iranian navy were destroyed, and every Iranian submarine was sunk during the 2026 war. And yet, on the morning of May 10th, 2026, Iran is sitting inside the world's most important waterway with 130 boats and daring the United States military to do something about it. So, the question you need to be asking right now is a simple one. How does a navy that was supposedly 90% destroyed still control the Strait of Hormuz? The answer to that question is what makes the IRGC's fast attack fleet one of the most special and dangerous unusual threats in modern sea fighting. And understanding it is very important before you can understand what is really happening in the strait right now. Let's go back to the basics first. The IRGC Navy follows a special set of rules, training methods, and equipment ideas that focus on unusual sea fighting. They use small fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, naval mines, and swarm tactics instead of normal Navy battles. It is often called a guerrilla Navy. This is not a regular fleet. It was never made to fight the United States Navy ship against ship in open water. It was made especially to work in the shallow waters, with many islands and broken coastlines of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. In that place, the big advantages of a huge Nimitz-class carrier group get much smaller, and the advantages of speed, numbers, and hiding near the coast get much bigger. The IRGC's speedboats are hidden in sea caves along the coast and on islands. They stay fully ready, hard to see on radar, and able to launch strong missile attacks. The new Hadr 110 missile launching boat reportedly broke speed records at 110 knots, faster than anything the U.S. Navy can put against it on the water's surface. These boats are 60 to 75 feet long, run on diesel, can go 50 to 60 knots, and some types carry the C-802 anti-ship missile. That is a Chinese weapon with a range of about 100 miles and a 160-kilogram warhead that flies low over the sea surface. It can really sink a U.S. destroyer if it gets through. And the swarm idea is the real weapon. Iran's current plan calls for spreading out groups of 20 or more boats coming from many different directions at the same time. This is made to fill up a ship's defenses from many angles. The whole battle plan is to overwhelm the enemy, to make the defense system choose so many targets at once that some of the threats get through. And with 130 boats now confirmed in organized groups, that plan is being used at a size that has not been seen before in this fight. Now here is where the U.S. answer this morning becomes very important. Because CENTCOM did not sit quietly and watch Iran show those satellite pictures. U.S. Central Command confirmed that F-16 Viper planes are among more than 100 planes from land and sea bases that are actively helping operations in and around the Strait of Hormuz. FA-18 Super Hornets are flying combat patrols from carrier ships. AH-64 Apache attack helicopters are working in the area. And this is the same way of working that already proved itself when CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed that U.S. forces used AH-64 Apache and MH-60 Seahawk helicopters to destroy 6 Iranian small boats that threatened commercial ships during the start of Project Freedom on May 4th. 6 boats attacked, 6 boats destroyed, quickly and cleanly. So, why is Iran now showing 130? That is the question. That should be answered completely by the time this video is done. But before we go further, understand the background that makes this morning's pictures so important. Operation Project Freedom started on May 4th, 2026 as a U.S. military operation to escort merchant ships through the Strait of Hormuz because of Iranian attacks on shipping. It was stopped for a short time on May 6th at Pakistan's request, while peace talks continued. CENTCOM sent guided missile destroyers, over 100 planes from land and sea, including F-15s, F-16s, F-35s, and EA-18G Growlers, different kinds of unmanned vehicles working under the sea, on the sea, and from the air, and 15,000 service members to support that operation. President Trump has since made it very clear publicly that if talks stop, Project Freedom will start again. And it will start as what he is calling Project Freedom Plus. That is a phrase that nobody in Tehran should treat as an empty threat after what the last 40 days showed. So Iran showing these 130 boat groups publicly this morning is not a random act. It is a planned, careful message. It is Iran's visible position statement in a negotiation. And the United States answered within hours with its own pictures showing exactly what those 130 boats would face. This is 4D chess being played at sea level in the world's most important 21-mile-wide waterway. And the risks could not be higher. So let's break down exactly what Iran is trying to do with this move. Because showing satellite-visible groups of 130 fast attack boats into the Strait of Hormuz on the morning of May 10, 2026, is not a military action. It is a message. And to understand what Iran is saying, you have to understand the position Tehran finds itself in right now. Because it is a position that is at the same time weaker and more dangerous than at any earlier point in this fight. Iran started the Persian Gulf Strait Authority on May 7, 2026, setting it up as the only group with power to give permission to ships that want to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. They sent application forms directly to shipping information companies and required all ships to get approval from the IRGC Navy before going through special lanes near Qeshm Island. Read that again slowly. Iran, a country whose regular navy has been called by the United States military as basically destroyed, is now running what is like a toll booth operation at the entrance to the waterway through which 20% of the world's sea oil once flowed every day. They are not doing this because they have the military strength to force it against a full U.S. answer. They are doing it because they still have enough leftover unusual ability to make the cost of ignoring them very high. And that difference between enough ability to be dangerous and enough ability to win is the thin line Iran is walking right now in every talk being helped by Pakistan. As of May 7, 2026, the International Maritime Organization reported that about 1,500 ships and 20,000 crew members remain stuck in the Persian Gulf because of the strait's closure. These are ships from many countries carrying goods that the global economy really needs, sitting still in waters that Iran has filled with mines, patrolled, and attacked many times. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the operation aims to save 23,000 civilians from 87 countries who are stuck in the Persian Gulf. This is not some faraway political fight. There are real crews, real ships, and real cargo sitting inside an active war area. And every day that passes without a fix makes a humanitarian and economic crisis deeper. That crisis is now being felt from Rotterdam to Singapore to Mumbai. Now look at what happened when the U.S. really tested Iran's willingness to fight. On May 4th, 2 U.S. Navy destroyers, the USS Truxtun and the USS Mason, went through the Strait of Hormuz under what officials called a strong attack of small boats, missiles, and drones, supported by fighter planes and AH-64 Apache helicopters. Even with the attack, neither destroyer was hit, with forces stopping or turning away each threat. Iran's state media claimed hits on U.S. ships. CENTCOM denied every single claim. And the pattern of Iran claiming damage that satellite pictures and U.S. records do not support has become so regular throughout this fight that it has basically destroyed the trust in Iranian military statements in the eyes of the international shipping world. That is exactly the group whose choices about whether to go through the strait really matter right now. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper later described the IRGC Navy as now being in an irreversible decline. That is a strong phrase from a 4-star admiral. Irreversible. Decline. Not just damaged, not just weaker, irreversible. And yet, here we are, on May 10th, watching 130 boats appear in organized groups and asking ourselves whether that judgment was too early. The answer is more detailed than either side wants to admit. Because what the U.S. destroyed in the 40-day campaign was Iran's regular naval setup, Its frigates, its submarines, its mine layers, its bigger patrol ships, the parts of a navy that fight and die by the rules of normal sea warfare. What the U.S. did not and probably cannot fully destroy just with airstrikes is the spread-out, cave-hidden, quickly replaceable mosquito fleet that the IRGC has been building quietly for decades. They did this because their leaders understood that a direct normal fight with the United States Navy would end in exactly the kind of destruction that just happened. Experts guess that the IRGC could have anywhere from hundreds to thousands of small attack boats, a number so big that even the strongest American airstrikes could not remove them all. The Mosquito fleet kept working from huge bunkers hidden under mountains and from secret bases on islands throughout the 40-day fight, coming out to bother U.S. Navy groups. And the ability to make these boats is not the same as making a ballistic missile or a nuclear machine. These are diesel-powered fiberglass boats with ready-made boat engines and rocket launchers attached to the deck. Iran can build them faster than the United States can find and destroy the places making them. That is the basic unusual logic that makes the Mosquito fleet a truly lasting threat, even inside a fight that has otherwise gone very badly for Tehran. So, when you see those 130 boats grouped and organized this morning, what you are really seeing is Iran sending three specific messages at the same time. The first message is for the United States military. It says that the ceasefire did not remove the one ability that makes the Strait of Hormuz impossible to fully open without Iran's agreement. The second message is for the global shipping industry and the 87 nations whose ships are stuck in the Persian Gulf. It says that Project Freedom, no matter how strong its air part is, cannot promise the safety of a commercial ship going through waters that 130 fast attack boats can reach in minutes from coast hiding spots. And the third message, the one that almost no expert is talking about loudly enough right now, is for the Iranian people inside the country and for the strong-line groups inside the IRGC who are watching their leaders negotiate away the programs they spent their lives building. It says that Iran still has cards, that the government has not been completely beaten, that there is still power worth keeping. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned Washington directly, writing publicly that events in Hormuz make clear there is no military fix to a political problem, and said that Project Freedom is Project Deadlock. That is very honest language from a foreign minister whose country just took the biggest coordinated military attack campaign since the Gulf War. He is not wrong about the basic logic. The Strait of Hormuz has never been and will never be a problem that air power alone can solve forever, because geography does not give up and coastal unusual ability does not get destroyed from 30,000 feet. But he is also arguing from a place where his country's economy has been judged by its own central bank as needing 12 years to rebuild, where the Dubai money channel that kept Iran working has been cut, and where a weak ceasefire has been broken many times in its first 48 hours. The boats in the strait this morning are Iran's strongest leftover card, and the fact that they had to show it publicly, clearly at satellite level, tells you something important about how few cards they have left. Now, let's talk about what the United States military really has in the area right now, because the answer to those 130 boats is not going to come from one weapon or one part of the military. What CENTCOM has put together in and around the Strait of Hormuz as of May 10, 2026, is one of the most connected multi-layer attack systems ever gathered in a single tight spot. And understanding each layer of that answer system is the only way to correctly judge what happens next if Iran decides those 130 boats are going to do more than sit in formation for a satellite. Start with the air part, because that is where this fight gets decided quickest. CENTCOM has sent over 100 planes from land and sea to help operations in the strait, including F-15E Strike Eagles, F-16 Vipers, F-35 Lightning IIs, and A-18G electronic warfare planes. Each of those planes brings a different and matching ability to the fight. The F-35 is not just a strike plane here. Its special radar gives it the power to track dozens of fast-moving boats on the water, at distances the boats themselves cannot see or fight against. It sends that target information through Link 16 to every other plane in the group, meaning the F-15E pilot does not need to find the boats himself. The F-35 finds them, marks them, and shares the target picture with the whole attack group in real time. The F-16 Viper brings speed, numbers, and the ability to carry many different weapons across many areas at the same time. And the EA-18G Growler is the tool that makes every Iranian try at organized command between those 130 boats much harder, by blocking their communication signals and weakening the teamwork that makes a swarm work well. Because here's the thing about a swarm of 130 boats that simple surface thinking misses. Those boats are not smart threats by themselves. They are a connected system, and a connected system needs communication between its parts to work as planned. Break the communication system, and you do not have a 130-boat swarm doing a planned multi-direction attack. You have 130 separate boat captains making unconnected choices in a dangerous place with U.S. fighters above and U.S. destroyers in front of them. That is a completely different battle problem, and it is one the IRGC has not shown it can solve under the kind of electronic jamming pressure the EA-18G creates. Then there are the helicopter assets, and this is where the fight at close distance gets tough and final. CENTCOM confirmed that AH-64 Apache attack helicopters and MH-60 Seahawk helicopters were used during project operations, with the Apache especially used to destroy Iranian fast attack boats threatening commercial ships. The AH-64 Apache carries the 30mm chain gun, Hydra 70 rockets, and Hellfire missiles. Against a fiberglass fast attack boat going 50 knots across open water, the 30mm chain gun alone is basically a boat-destroying machine. Working from safe distances, the IRGC boats cannot shoot back well. One Apache fighting one group of boats in a swarm does not face a hard targeting problem. It faces a busy workload problem, and that workload problem is exactly why CENTCOM has sent many Apache and Seahawk teams across the area, each given a clear section of water, each responsible for every boat that enters their zone. The section division plan is key to understanding how the U.S. would really carry out an attack against a 130-boat group. You do not try to follow 130 separate boats from one command center. You divide the strait and the nearby areas into clear operating sections, give a fighter or helicopter group to each section, and tell each group to destroy every contact in their area. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye warning plane and the Aegis systems on the guided missile destroyers send the real-time water picture to every group at the same time, making sure that as boats move between sections or try to hide using islands and coast, the switch between groups is smooth. In March 2026, the U.S. dropped 5,000-pound GBU-72 bunker buster bombs on strong Iranian anti-ship missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz coast. Those same coast sites are where the command centers for the fast attack boat fleet are gathered. Removing the command centers before the boats even leave their hiding spots is the first step of any serious U.S. answer, and it is a step the U.S. has already shown it is willing and able to do. And then there is the Navy surface part. On May 7, 2026, 3 U.S. destroyers successfully scattered an Iranian fast attack boat swarm in the Strait of Hormuz, with American forces hitting Iranian missile and drone launch sites at the same time. 3 destroyers against a swarm. The result was the swarm breaking up. Not damage to U.S. ships, not successful Iranian blocking of the waterway, but breaking up of the Iranian group. An Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer carries the Phalanx close defense system, the 5-inch naval gun, standard missile interceptors, and Tomahawk cruise missiles. Against fast attack boats at close range, the 5-inch gun firing at full speed can hit surface targets at distances the IRGC boats need to reach before their own weapons work well. The Phalanx handles the boats that get through the outer defense, and the mix of those two systems, supported by the air assets above, creates a defense setup that is very hard for a swarm to break through enough to cause real damage to the ship itself. But here is what every serious expert is thinking this morning as those 130 boat groups sit in their satellite pictures. Defense and world politics experts have noted that Iran clearly keeps an unusual ability to keep control in the Strait area, and that commercial shipping companies will stay unwilling to go through until there is clear proof that Iran no longer has those abilities. That is the working gap that no amount of F-16 flights or Apache fights fully closes, because the U.S. military can destroy every boat it can find and follow. What it cannot do is give total certainty to the captain of an 85,000-ton commercial tanker that the boat hidden in a sea cave on the north shore of Qeshm Island that was not in the morning satellite picture will not come out and fire a C-802 anti-ship missile at his ship as he goes through the narrow channel. Uncertainty, not ability, is Iran's most powerful leftover weapon in the strait. And the 130 boat formation shown this morning is made especially to keep and increase that uncertainty in the minds of every shipping company risk manager on the planet, right at the time when Pakistan-led talks are deciding whether Iran gets sanctions relief or another round of strikes. Iran's IRGC Navy commander Alireza Tansiri was killed in an Israeli airstrike on March 26, 2026. His death removed one of the most experienced fast-attack warfare leaders in the IRGC's history, a man who had spent decades building and improving exactly the kind of swarm plan being shown in the Strait today. So, who ordered those 130 boats into formation this morning, and who is directing the IRGC Navy's leftover working position right now? That question matters a lot for what comes next, and it connects directly to the bigger leadership empty space that has been growing inside Iran's military setup since February 28th. So here we are on May 10th, 2026, with 130 IRGC fast attack boats sitting in organized groups inside the Strait of Hormuz, over 100 U.S. planes overhead and ready, 3 U.S. guided missile destroyers in the water, 15,000 American service members gathered in the most crowded military area on the planet right now, and peace talks being helped by Pakistan that could either fix this standoff with talks or break it into a second round of fighting that neither side has publicly said it wants, but neither side has fully walked away from either. So, where does this actually go from here? And what does the next 72 hours look like for the waterway that the global economy cannot work without? Let's start with the leadership question, because it is the one that shapes every other part in this situation. On February 28, 2026, Israel's first strike killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Iranian Defense Minister Aziz Nasserzadeh and IRGC Commander Mohammad Pakpour were both killed by Israeli airstrikes. Defense Council Secretary Ali Shamkhani was killed along with 4 top Ministry of Intelligence officials. Then, on March 26th, the IRGC Navy's working commander, Alireza Tansiri, was killed in a targeted airstrike. The command system that built, trained, funded, and directed the fast attack fleet over 4 decades of development was carefully cut off at the top. And into that empty space, the strong line groups inside the IRGC's middle ranks, the ones with the most to lose from any talk agreement that takes apart the programs they gave their careers to, have been quietly building their power. This is the background in which you have to understand the 130 boat show this morning. It is not just a military position, it is an inside political statement. The groups now controlling whatever is left of the IRGC Navy are telling the negotiators in Pakistan, the more practical people around President Pezeshkian, and anyone else inside Iran's broken decision system who might want to trade the strait power for sanctions relief, that they still have cards and they are not afraid to show them publicly. The boats in the water are as much a message to Tehran's own political leaders as they are to Washington. And now, President Trump has put a clear and public threat on the table: Project Freedom Plus. He did not explain what the plus part involves, but the working logic is not hard to see. During Project Freedom's first run, the U.S. dropped GBU-72 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs on strong Iranian anti-ship missile sites along the Strait coast. Project Freedom Plus almost surely means spreading that targeting logic to the fast attack boat command centers, the coast hiding spots, the island bases, and possibly the IRGC Navy's remaining working headquarters at Bandar Abbas. It means not just escorting ships through the strait, but carefully destroying the setup that lets Iran threaten ships in the first place. That is a much bigger military operation than what Project Freedom did in its first 48 hours. And Iran's military leaders understand exactly what it means. Between May 5th and May 9th, U.S. naval forces redirected 57 ships as part of blockade operations on Iranian ports, while Iran at the same time took the Jinlai tanker in the Gulf of Oman. The mutual pressure, the campaign has not stopped. The ceasefire that Trump announced on April 7th is holding in name while being tested step by step in real actions, with both sides doing operations that would have been acts of war 6 months ago, now being called defensive steps and normal enforcement in press releases. On May 4th, The IRGC announced it had set up new travel paths near Qeshm Island and warned that any ship not following its new Persian Gulf Strait Authority would face a strong answer. The United States at the same time announced it was not accepting any Iranian control over international shipping lanes. Two opposite claims of control over the same 21-mile waterway, both backed by military force, both now in a state of controlled but weak non-fighting. Now look at what the global economic picture is doing to the need for a quick fix, because this is the pressure that finally forces a talked agreement faster than any military threat. The International Energy Agency described the 2026 Strait of Hormuz problem as the biggest supply break in the history of the global oil market, with Brent crude going over 120s per barrel and the total oil production of Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE dropping by at least 10 million barrels per day by mid-March. Every day the strait stays basically closed, that economic damage grows. Every day those 1,500 ships sit stuck in the Persian Gulf. Shipping insurance costs stay so high that the commercial travel becomes not worth it, even if the military situation got better suddenly. Iran's own main money channel through Dubai, worth between $16 and $28 billion every year, has been cut after Emirati actions against IRGC-linked money handlers following Iranian strikes on UAE buildings. Iran is, at the same time, blocking the waterway it needs open to pay for its own rebuilding. That is the contradiction at the heart of Tehran's current plan, and it is one that Pakistan's helpers are pushing hard on in every talk session. So, what are the realistic possibilities happening over the next days and weeks? The first possibility is a talked agreement that gives Iran enough economic help to make pulling the boats back and opening the strait under a watch setup worth it. This needs the U.S. to offer enough sanctions relief to be okay inside Iran, while Iran offers enough real promises on its nuclear program and strait access to be okay in Washington. Republican senators have made clear that any agreement would need full Senate approval and would only work if Iran completely took apart its enrichment abilities and fixed both its missile program and support for proxy forces at the same time. Those are three conditions that Iran's strongline groups have called life-or-death red lines. The space between what is politically okay in Washington and what is politically okay in Tehran is not small. The second possibility is that talks stop. Trump starts Project Freedom Plus again. And the 130 boats in the strait this morning find out what 3 destroyers, 100 planes, AH-64 Apaches, and a strong combat system do to fiberglass boats on a big scale. Based on what happened to 6 boats on May 4th, the working result of that fight is not really in doubt. What is in doubt is whether removing the boats fixes the basic standoff or just starts a new phase of Iranian unusual answers, with mines, coast missiles from sites that survived the first campaign, and underwater unmanned vehicles that IRGC leaders talked about in late April. Iran has already shown it started putting naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz as early as March 10, 2026, with U.S. forces destroying 16 Iranian mine layers in answer. The mine threat does not disappear when the boats disappear. It stays at the bottom of a waterway that global trade depends on until every mine is found and made safe, a process that takes weeks even in the best conditions. The third possibility, and the one that the current satellite pictures and talk position most closely match, is continued controlled pressure, where both sides use enough force to keep their power without starting the full fight that neither side has the home political desire for right now. Iran keeps the boats visible. The U.S. keeps the planes overhead. Pakistan keeps the talk channel open. And 23,000 sailors from 87 nations keep waiting inside a Persian Gulf that has become the most dangerous body of water on Earth. What you are watching in the Strait of Hormuz this morning is not the end of a fight. It is the negotiating table that both sides could not build in a meeting room, built instead out of fast attack boats and fighter planes, and satellite pictures released at carefully chosen times to send messages that diplomats are not yet ready to say out loud. The 130 boats are a signal. The F-16s overhead are the answer to that signal. And somewhere between those two pictures, the future of the world's most important energy path is being decided right now. If this video gave you a view you are not getting anywhere else, hit that like button and help the algorithm show this to the people who need to see it. Subscribe if you have not already, because this situation is changing by the hour, And we are going to be right here covering every new thing as it happens.